Elena and I had been best friends since childhood, but college had put miles between us. Thanks to technology, though, we still managed to maintain our close bond through regular FaceTime calls. On a particular Friday night, as the ambiance of my cozy room was punctuated by the soft drizzle outside, Elena and I caught up over a video call. As always, she was in her spacious living room, her lively plants providing a vibrant backdrop. We laughed and recounted our week, the distance fading away as our stories flowed. As Elena animatedly described her latest work project, a faint, distant beeping started echoing from her end of the call. I strained my ears, trying to make it out. "Elena," I interrupted, "do you hear that?" She paused, listening. "Hear what?" The beeping grew louder, clearer. It was her home alarm. "It sounds like your alarm is going off," I said, my brow furrowed with concern. She looked puzzled. "That's strange. Maybe it's just a malfunction. I'll check on it later." I nodded, though a niggling worry settled in my chest. But as we continued talking, something more pressing caught my attention. Behind Elena, barely visible due to the angle of her camera, I could see her front door. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to creak open. My heart raced as I realized someone was entering her home. "Elena!" I exclaimed, panic evident in my voice. "Your front door is opening." Her face turned pale, her eyes darting to the screen to see what I was seeing. But before she could react, a shadowy figure slipped inside, quickly disappearing from view. "We need to call the police," I urged, my voice shaky. But Elena, always the brave one, shook her head. "No, wait. It might just be my neighbor. He sometimes enters by mistake." I was skeptical, the alarm and the stealthy entrance suggesting otherwise. "Please be careful." Elena moved cautiously, approaching the door. "Hello? Who's there?" A chilling silence was the only response. She walked out of the camera's frame to investigate, leaving me anxiously staring at the static image of her living room. Seconds felt like hours, the uncertainty heightening my fear. I strained my ears, trying to catch any sound, any indication of what was transpiring. Suddenly, there was a scuffling noise, followed by a muffled cry. My heart pounded in my ears. "Elena, are you okay?" I shouted, hoping she'd hear me. There was no response. The weight of helplessness bore down on me. I was miles away, unable to do anything but watch and wait. Desperate, I grabbed my phone, dialing 911, and explained the situation. They assured me they'd send a team immediately. Elena's living room remained eerily silent, the plants casting long, spooky shadows as the evening sun faded. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside, sent shivers down my spine. And then suddenly, a face appeared on the screen. Not Elena's. A man, his features obscured by a mask, stared intently into the camera. His cold, emotionless eyes locked onto mine, sending a wave of terror through me. He leaned in, his voice a sinister whisper. "You should have minded your own business." The screen went black. The abrupt end of the call left me in a chilling void of uncertainty. The masked man's threat echoed in my mind. My breaths came in short, panicked gasps. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there miles away, feeling powerless. I quickly dialed another number. Jake, a mutual friend who lived close to Elena. "Jake, you need to go to Elena's house. I think she's in trouble," I blurted out the moment he picked up. I recounted the terrifying events of the video call, and without hesitation, Jake promised to check it out. The next few minutes were agonizing. Every worst-case scenario played out in my mind. The rain outside seemed to mirror my anguish, pouring harder with each passing second. Finally, my phone buzzed, breaking through my spiraling thoughts. A video call from Jake. I quickly accepted. The screen revealed a frantic scene. Police cars with flashing lights were parked outside Elena's house, their sirens muted, but their urgency palpable. Jake's face appeared, his features strained with concern. "I got here as fast as I could," he panted. "The police were already here. I think someone tipped them off." I breathed a sigh of relief. I called 911 when everything happened. Jake nodded, then moved the camera to show Elena sitting on her porch steps, wrapped in a blanket. She looked shaken but unharmed. My heart swelled with relief. Can I speak to her? Jake handed Elena the phone. Her eyes, though teary, held a fierce determination. I'm okay, she whispered. What happened? I asked, desperate for answers. She took a deep breath. After our call cut off, he tried to restrain me, but I managed to fight him off and ran to the neighbors. They'd heard the commotion and were already calling the police. She paused, shuddering at the memory. He wasn't expecting me to resist. When the police siren sounded, he panicked and ran. They're still searching for him. The realization of what could have happened, the danger she'd been in, made my head spin. I'm so glad you're okay, I murmured, emotions choking my voice. She smiled weakly. Thanks to you and Jake. After assuring each other of our safety and promising to catch up soon, we ended the call. That night, sleep eluded me, the night's events replaying in my mind. The next day, news broke that the police had apprehended the intruder. It turned out he was a local thief, known for studying his victims through their online presence, using technology to his advantage. Elena's regular posts about being home alone had unfortunately made her an easy target. But in the end, it was also technology, our simple video call, that had thwarted his sinister plans, proving that sometimes our greatest vulnerabilities can also be our most powerful defenses. It had been a challenging week, and the only thing keeping me afloat was the upcoming video call with my old college roommate, Lisa. We'd always promised each other that no matter where life took us, we'd keep our tradition of monthly FaceTime calls. And this particular call, given the circumstances of my week, felt like a lifeline. I settled into my comfy armchair, my iPad propped up on the coffee table, and dialed Lisa's number. A few seconds later, her familiar face appeared on screen. Her short blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her usually vibrant blue eyes seemed dull, overshadowed by the shadows beneath them. Hey, I greeted, trying to infuse some energy into the call. Lisa attempted a smile but didn't quite manage it. Hey, she whispered back. Rough day? I asked, noting her subdued demeanor. She took a deep breath, her eyes darting to the side for a brief moment before refocusing on me. Yeah, kinda. Just stuff, you know? Can we keep talking? Tell me about your week. And so, I launched into a detailed account of my week, sharing stories of work mishaps, funny moments, and even the silly argument I'd had with my neighbor about a misplaced package. Throughout, Lisa maintained eye contact with the screen, nodding occasionally, but her attention kept shifting. Every now and then, her eyes would dart off to the side, and a look of sheer panic would flit across her face. Growing concerned, I asked, Lisa, is everything okay? You seem distracted. She took a shuddering breath, forcing a smile. Yeah, just a long day. Please, keep talking. I need the distraction. But her response didn't soothe my unease. Instead, it intensified it. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my gut. Lisa, I began, trying to choose my words carefully. If there's something happening, if you're in any kind of trouble. She cut me off abruptly. Just keep talking, okay? I need to hear your voice. It's important. The desperation in her voice rattled me. I resumed talking, recounting any story or anecdote that came to mind, all while observing Lisa. Her constant glances off screen made it clear she wasn't alone in her apartment. She was trying to distract someone, or something. As the minutes wore on, I caught fragments of hushed whispers just below the threshold of the microphone. Lisa's eyes widened every time it happened, and she'd respond with an exaggerated laugh or nod, as if trying to cover up the sound. My heart raced, and the weight of helplessness bore down on me. We were miles apart, and there was little I could do but engage her in conversation. A sudden thought struck me. I began weaving a fictional story about a mutual friend we both knew, hinting at a surprise visit I was planning for Lisa that evening. "Oh, remember Jason from college?" I began, hoping Lisa would catch on. "I spoke to him earlier, and he's in town. Can you believe it? I thought it would be fun if we both gave you a surprise visit. He said he's just a few minutes away from your place and might drop by." Lisa's eyes widened in comprehension, and she played along. "Really? Oh, that's such a wonderful surprise. I'd love to see him. And you too, of course." As our call continued, the whispered sounds in the background became more infrequent and finally ceased altogether. Lisa's demeanor changed, the panic gradually replaced by genuine relief. After ensuring she was okay, I ended the call and immediately dialed 911, providing them with Lisa's address and explaining my concerns. Just when I thought the worst was behind us, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Lisa. "Don't call again. It's listening." The message chilled me to the bone. My fingers trembled as I typed a response. "Lisa, what's happening? The police are on their way." I waited with bated breath for her reply. Each second felt like an eternity. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Lisa. "It's quiet now. Please don't talk about it. I'll explain soon." Confused and terrified for my friend, I contemplated my next move. My instincts told me to rush to her apartment, but the distance and the darkness outside held me back. Plus, I had already informed the authorities. About 15 minutes later, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed Lisa's name. Hesitantly, I picked up, praying she was okay. "Lisa?" I asked tentatively. "It's gone," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think it's gone." I exhaled, relief flooding my system. "What happened, Lisa? What was listening?" She took a deep breath before beginning her story. "It started a few weeks ago. I'd hear noises in my apartment, whispers, footsteps, things being moved around. I thought I was losing my mind. But it wasn't just random sounds. It felt intentional, like someone or something was deliberately trying to unsettle me. My heart raced, the implications of what she was saying sinking in. But what did it want? "I don't know," she admitted. "But every time I was on a call or playing music, the sounds would diminish, like it was trying to avoid being detected. Tonight, when you called, it was the loudest it had ever been. I felt its presence, looming somewhere nearby. That's why I needed you to keep talking. I think our conversation, especially about someone visiting, drove it away." A chill ran down my spine. "Did you see anything? Any hint of what it might be?" She hesitated. "No, not directly. But there were shadows. Distorted, elongated shadows that didn't belong. They'd move around, darting in and out of my peripheral vision." The line went quiet for a few moments. "Lisa, you need to leave that apartment, at least for a few days," I urged. She sighed. "I think you're right. I'm packing some stuff now. I'll stay at my sister's place." As we continued talking, I heard the distant sounds of sirens. The police had arrived. Lisa promised to update them and to keep me informed. The following day, I received a call from a local detective. They had inspected Lisa's apartment, but found no signs of forced entry or any evidence of an intruder. However, they did make a disturbing discovery. Hidden within the walls and ceiling were a series of microphones and speakers, all wired to a control unit in the basement. Someone had been surveilling Lisa, manipulating the sounds to terrorize her. A thorough investigation eventually led the police to the building's janitor, a reclusive man with a history of stalking. He had become infatuated with Lisa, and using his access to the building, had devised this elaborate scheme to drive her into a state of fear, hoping she would eventually turn to him for comfort and protection. The janitor was swiftly arrested after the police uncovered his sinister scheme. Unable to shake off the memories and trauma of her old place, Lisa moved to a new apartment, seeking a fresh start. The ordeal brought us closer than ever. Our once-monthly FaceTime calls became more frequent, cementing a bond forged not just in nostalgia, but in shared adversity and unwavering support. It was just another casual Friday evening when I decided to FaceTime my childhood friend, Alex. We'd kept in touch throughout the years, and despite the physical distance, video calls had become our primary way of bridging the gap. The sun had set hours ago, and the only light in my living room came from the muted glow of my laptop screen and the lamp on my side table. The conversation with Alex flowed effortlessly as we reminisced about shared memories, discussed the movies we'd recently watched, and talked about our mundane lives. I was in the middle of narrating a funny incident at work when I heard my doorbell ring. It was a faint chime, almost drowned out by my laughter. I paused, furrowing my brows. "Who'd come around at this hour?" I mumbled, more to myself than to Alex. "You expecting someone?" Alex asked, tilting his head with curiosity. I shook my head, feeling a slight unease. "No, not at all." I got up, moving towards the window to peek outside. The street was dark, with only a couple of distant streetlights casting a dim glow. I couldn't see anyone on my porch or near my door. "Strange," I whispered. From the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Alex's smirk on the laptop screen. "What?" I asked, returning to my seat. He shrugged, that smirk never leaving his face. "I didn't hear the doorbell." I blinked, puzzled. "That's probably because of the call quality. You know how these things are." But his smirk persisted. No, he said slowly. "I always hear your doorbell on these calls. This time there was nothing." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe the ambient noise had played tricks on my ears. But the certainty in Alex's voice, combined with that unnerving smirk, set my heart racing. Maybe it's just a kid playing pranks, I reasoned. Alex leaned closer to his camera, his face taking on a more serious tone. "Just be careful. Check your security camera." Nodding, I quickly logged into my security camera feed on my phone. The porch was empty. However, I noticed a brief flash of static on the feed, right around the time the doorbell rang. Rewinding a few minutes prior showed no visitors, just that same momentary interference. "Alex," I whispered, holding up my phone for him to see. There was no one there, just this weird static. His smirk had vanished. "That's not right. Why would there be interference on your feed?" I shook my head. "No idea." There was a pause before Alex spoke again. "I think you should call the police." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. My heart thudded loudly in my chest. I glanced back at my phone's live feed, but still, no one on the porch, just another flash of static. "What's going on?" I whispered, panic creeping into my voice. Alex's expression was a mix of confusion and fear. "Lock all your doors and windows, and stay on the call with me." I rushed around my home, ensuring every entry point was secured. When I returned to the living room, my eyes were drawn to the laptop. Alex was no longer alone in his room. Behind him, almost blending into the shadows, stood a hooded figure. "Alex!" I screamed. "Behind you!" But he just sat there, smirking. Alex's smirk was eerie and out of place, sending fresh waves of terror through me. My voice came out in a choked whisper. "Alex, please look behind you." He chuckled, a sound so unlike him that it made my skin crawl. "Why so scared?" he taunted. The hooded figure began to move, its motions deliberate and slow. The hood still covered its face, but I could see one hand emerging, holding up what looked like a remote control. Alex's smirk grew wider as he too brandished a similar remote. My thoughts raced, trying to piece together the situation. The realization hit me hard. They were working together. But why? What did they want from me? How did this hooded stranger know Alex? The hooded figure pressed a button on the remote. Instantaneously, my doorbell rang again, its echo filling the silence of my house. The connection was clear. They controlled the doorbell. "Why are you doing this?" I managed to ask, fear choking my voice. Alex leaned closer to his screen, his voice dripping with malice. "Just a game, old friend. Let's see how long before you crack." The doorbell kept ringing over and over, an incessant chime that threatened to drive me mad. I held my hands to my ears, trying to block it out. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The silence was almost worse. The hooded figure slowly pulled back the hood, revealing a face I hadn't seen in over a decade. Ciara, another childhood friend. But her eyes were devoid of warmth or recognition. They were cold, emotionless. "You remember Ciara, right?" Alex sneered. "Turns out she has a knack for tech. We thought it'd be fun to pay you a little visit. Virtually, of course." I stumbled back, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. "But why? What did I do?" Sarah's voice was a flat monotone. "You moved on, left us behind. While you made new friends, started a new life. We were forgotten." Alex nodded in agreement. "It's time for a little payback." I took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. This is insane. We all went our separate ways. It's called growing up. You can't blame me for that. The two exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Then Ciara spoke, her voice shaking with emotion. "We just wanted to scare you, remind you of the past. We never meant to harm you." Alex sighed. "She's right. Maybe we took it too far." Relief washed over me, but the weight of what had happened kept me grounded. This isn't a game. Friendship doesn't work this way. The call ended abruptly, leaving me in the dim glow of my living room. The silence was deafening. My phone buzzed. A message from Alex. "Sorry, hope we can move past this." I stared at the message, a mix of anger and sadness filling me. The night's events were a stark reminder that sometimes the past should remain in the past, and some friendships were best left forgotten.